Most men grow up believing intimacy begins with the body, with movement, with performance. They think desire is something you trigger physically, something you turn on with the right action at the right moment. But decades of neuroscience, urology, and relationship research reveal a truth that completely changes how intimacy works. For women, arousal begins in the brain long before the body ever responds. This is not opinion. Brain imaging studies using functional MRI show that the first areas to activate during female arousal are not the genitals, but regions tied to emotion, memory, safety, and anticipation. If the brain does not feel safe, calm, and engaged, the body will not follow, no matter how experienced or confident a man believes he is. Here is the shocking part most men never hear. Stress is the single biggest desire killer in women, and modern life keeps stress hormones elevated almost constantly. Cortisol, the stress hormone, directly suppresses estrogen and blocks the release of oxytocin, the hormone responsible for bonding, trust, and pleasure. When cortisol is high, blood flow to intimate tissues decreases, lubrication drops, and sensitivity dulls. From a medical standpoint, the body is prioritizing survival over connection. This means that rushing, pressure, impatience, or emotional distance doesn't just feel wrong, it biologically shuts her down. Neuroscientists explain that female desire is often responsive, not spontaneous. Unlike men whose arousal can be visually or instantly triggered by testosterone-driven pathways, women's arousal depends on context. The brain must first decide that the environment is safe, emotionally supportive, and free of threat. Only then does it allow the body to respond. This is why so many women report that they want intimacy, but struggle to feel aroused. Their mind is overloaded, not broken. Their nervous system is alert, not relaxed. Medical research shows that when a woman feels emotionally secure, oxytocin levels rise sharply. Oxytocin increases trust, deepens connection, and dramatically improves blood flow to sensitive tissues. It also lowers cortisol. This hormonal shift cannot be forced. It only happens when the brain perceives patience, presence, and genuine attentiveness. This is why slowing down is not a technique. It is a biological requirement. Studies from sexual health clinics reveal something else that surprises many men. Women report higher satisfaction when intimacy unfolds gradually, even when physical contact is minimal at first. Why? Because anticipation activates dopamine, the motivation and pleasure chemical in the brain. Dopamine heightens focus and sensitivity. When anticipation is rushed or skipped, dopamine spikes briefly and crashes. When anticipation is allowed to build, pleasure becomes deeper and longer lasting. This also explains why emotional disconnection damages intimacy more than age, hormones, or even health conditions. The brain does not separate emotional safety from physical response. If a woman feels unheard, unseen, or pressured, the amygdala, the brain's threat detector, activates. Once this happens, the body subtly tenses, blood flow shifts away from pleasure centers, and desire fades. She may still participate, but her nervous system is no longer fully present. Over time, this creates frustration on both sides, even in loving relationships. Urologists and sexual medicine specialists often see couples who believe the problem is physical, when in reality, it is neurological. The body is capable, but the brain is overwhelmed. Research confirms that when men reduce pressure and focus on calm connection, women experience not only higher arousal, but also stronger emotional bonding and long-term desire. This is not about doing less, it is about doing what the brain actually needs. Here is another fact rarely discussed. A man's own nervous system directly influences his partner's. Humans subconsciously mirror each other's breathing, heart rate, and muscle tension. If a man is anxious, rushed, or distracted, her nervous system picks it up instantly. If he is calm, grounded, and attentive, her body begins to mirror that state. This phenomenon, called nervous system co-regulation, is backed by psychophysiological research. It is one of the most powerful drivers of intimacy, and most people have never heard of it. This is why slowing down changes everything. Slower pace allows both nervous systems to shift into the parasympathetic state, the rest and connect mode. In this state, blood flow improves, sensitivity increases, and emotional openness rises. This is when true desire emerges, not as an obligation, but as a natural response. The greatest misunderstanding men have is believing that women want more intensity. In reality, most women want less pressure and more presence. When the brain feels safe, the body responds more strongly than any force technique ever could. Medical studies consistently show that women who feel emotionally connected report fewer intimacy issues, less discomfort, and higher satisfaction, regardless of age. This truth becomes even more important as couples get older. With age, stress sensitivity increases, and hormonal shifts make the nervous system more reactive. What worked at 20 may not work at 50. But the brain's need for safety, calm, and connection never changes. In fact, it becomes more essential. When men understand that intimacy begins in the brain, frustration disappears. There is no rush to prove anything, no pressure to perform. The focus shifts from doing to being. And when that happens, desire stops being something you chase. It becomes something that naturally meets you halfway. This is the reason women don't ask for a move. They ask for how they feel in your presence. Calm or tense, safe or pressured, seen or rushed. The body simply follows the brain's decision. And that is the scientific truth no one teaches. But every healthy, lasting relationship is built on. Most men are taught that passion means intensity, faster movements, stronger actions, constant change. They believe that if something feels good, doing more of it must feel better. But medical science tells a very different story. One that quietly explains why so many women feel unsatisfied even when effort is high. The female body does not respond best to intensity. It responds to consistency. And the difference between those two ideas is not emotional. It is biological. Research in sexual medicine shows that the female nervous system is highly sensitive to unpredictability. When stimulation changes too quickly, too aggressively, or without rhythm, the brain struggles to stay engaged. Instead of building pleasure, the sensory system becomes overloaded. This overload activates stress pathways, even if the intention is loving. The result is a subtle shutdown of arousal that many women experience but struggle to explain. Here is the shocking fact. Studies measuring genital blood flow in women show that steady, rhythmic stimulation increases circulation more effectively than erratic or forceful behavior. Blood flow is the foundation of pleasure. Without it, sensitivity drops, lubrication decreases, and discomfort increases. The body is not being difficult. It is responding exactly as biology designed it to. Consistency allows the brain to predict what comes next, and prediction is essential for pleasure. Neuroscientists explain that when the brain can anticipate a pattern, it releases dopamine in a sustained way. Dopamine is not just the pleasure chemical, it is the focus chemical. It sharpens sensation and deepens emotional engagement. When stimulation is chaotic, dopamine spikes briefly and collapses. When stimulation is consistent, dopamine stays elevated, allowing pleasure to grow instead of burnout. This is why so many women report that intimacy feels better when their partner slows down and stays present instead of constantly trying something new. Novelty has its place, but without rhythm, novelty becomes noise. The nervous system cannot relax into noise. It tightens against it. Medical research also shows that consistency reduces pain and discomfort. In studies of female sexual response, predictable stimulation allows the pelvic floor muscles to relax. When movements are sudden or aggressive, those muscles tighten defensively. This tension reduces pleasure and increases the risk of discomfort or irritation. Over time, repeated tension can condition the body to associate intimacy with stress rather than enjoyment. This explains something many couples silently struggle with. A woman may care deeply for her partner and want closeness, yet her body does not respond fully. The issue is not attraction, it is nervous system fatigue. Her body has learned to stay guarded instead of opening up. Consistency also builds trust at a subconscious level. The brain is constantly scanning for safety cues. Predictable rhythm signals reliability. It tells the nervous system, you are not under threat, you can stay here. When that message is received, oxytocin levels rise. Oxytocin strengthens emotional bonding and increases sensitivity to touch. This hormone is one of the strongest predictors of long-term desire and satisfaction in women. Intensity without rhythm does the opposite. It keeps the brain alert instead of relaxed. Alertness feels exciting at first, but it cannot be sustained. Eventually, alertness becomes exhaustion. This is why intensity alone may work briefly, but fails to create lasting intimacy. Urologists and relationship therapists often see this pattern in long-term couples. Early in a relationship, novelty masks inconsistency. Over time, the nervous system needs stability to stay engaged. When stability is missing, desire fades, not because love is gone, but because the body no longer feels regulated. There is also a hormonal angle most people never consider. Consistent stimulation supports balanced estrogen response. Estrogen improves tissue elasticity, lubrication, and sensitivity. Stress hormones block estrogen's effects. Erratic or rushed behavior increases cortisol, which directly interferes with estrogen's role in pleasure. This hormonal interference becomes more pronounced with age, making rhythm even more important over time. Another overlooked factor is breathing. Research shows that steady rhythm naturally synchronizes breathing between partners. This synchronization lowers heart rate and blood pressure, activating the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the state where intimacy thrives. When rhythm is broken repeatedly, breathing becomes shallow and irregular, pushing both bodies back into a stress response. This is why women often describe great intimacy as feeling connected or in sync. That feeling is not poetic language. It is a measurable physiological state where nervous systems are aligned. And alignment requires consistency. Men often believe they need to perform. But the truth is, performance pressure destroys rhythm. When a man is focused on impressing, he stops paying attention. When attention disappears, consistency disappears with it. The body notices immediately. Studies show that women report higher satisfaction when their partner stays with what feels good instead of constantly changing to prove skill. Skill is not about variety. It is about awareness. Awareness creates rhythm. Rhythm creates safety. Safety creates desire. This becomes even more important as couples age. As estrogen and testosterone levels shift, the nervous system becomes less tolerant of stress. What once felt exciting may now feel overwhelming. But consistency continues to work at every age because it aligns with the body's natural regulatory systems. The most misunderstood truth is this: women do not crave intensity as much as men are taught. They crave attunement. Attunement is the ability to stay present, responsive, and steady. It tells her body that it is not being rushed, evaluated, or pushed. It tells her brain that it can let go. When consistency replaces intensity, intimacy stops feeling like effort. It becomes a shared experience instead of a performance. Pleasure deepens, not because more is being done, but because the body is finally allowed to respond fully. And this is why consistency and rhythm are not optional details. They are the foundation. Without them, desire flickers and fades. With them, intimacy becomes something women don't endure or tolerate, but actively want and remember. That is the science most people never learn, but every satisfied relationship quietly depends on. Most people want to believe intimacy problems start in the bedroom, but medicine tells a far less comfortable truth. What happens between two people at night is largely decided by what happens inside the body all day long. Long before desire fades, long before connection feels strained, the body begins sending warning signals through blood flow, hormones, and the nervous system. Ignore those signals and intimacy becomes effort. Respect them and desire often returns without force. Here's the shocking medical reality. Sexual response is one of the most energy-demanding processes in the human body. It requires healthy blood vessels, balanced hormones, stable blood sugar, deep sleep, and a calm nervous system. When even one of these systems is compromised, performance and satisfaction decline. This is not about age or attraction. It is physiology. Urologists see this daily. Men and women come in worried about intimacy, convinced something is wrong with them or their relationship. Yet tests often reveal the same underlying issues: poor circulation, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, sleep deprivation, and stress overload. These conditions silently damage sexual function years before more obvious symptoms appear. Blood flow is the foundation. Without strong circulation, arousal cannot fully develop. Research shows that endothelial dysfunction, a condition where blood vessels lose flexibility, is one of the earliest predictors of sexual difficulty. In men, this shows up as weaker erections. In women, it appears as reduced sensitivity, lubrication, and comfort. The cause is often the same: poor diet, inactivity, smoking, or unmanaged stress. What many don't realize is that sexual difficulties can be an early warning sign of heart disease, appearing years before chest pain or shortness of breath. Hormones are just as critical. Testosterone, estrogen, and oxytocin do not operate independently. They are influenced by sleep, nutrition, and stress levels. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which directly suppresses sex hormones. Studies show that high cortisol lowers testosterone in men and disrupts estrogen balance in women. This hormonal interference reduces desire, energy, and emotional bonding. No technique can override a hormone system that is under constant attack. Sleep is another silent destroyer. Medical research confirms that even 1 week of poor sleep can significantly reduce testosterone levels in men. In women, sleep deprivation increases anxiety and reduces arousal response. Deep sleep is when the body repairs blood vessels, balances hormones, and resets the nervous system. Without it, intimacy suffers, even if everything else seems fine. Nutrition plays a role most people underestimate. Diets high in sugar and processed foods increase inflammation and damage blood vessels. This reduces nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for blood flow during arousal. Studies show that men with insulin resistance are significantly more likely to experience erectile difficulties, while women with blood sugar instability report lower satisfaction and increased discomfort. Food is not just fuel. It is a chemical message that tells the body whether to thrive or protect itself. Physical activity is another key factor. Regular movement improves circulation, hormone balance, and mood. Research consistently shows that physically active individuals report higher desire and satisfaction at every age. Exercise increases nitric oxide, reduces inflammation, and lowers stress hormones. It also improves body confidence, which directly affects intimacy by reducing performance anxiety and self-consciousness. Mental health cannot be separated from sexual health. Anxiety and depression alter brain chemistry, reducing dopamine and serotonin balance. These changes blunt pleasure and motivation. Even mild chronic stress can keep the nervous system stuck in survival mode. In this state, the body prioritizes safety over connection. Desire does not disappear because of lack of love. It disappears because the body feels overwhelmed. This is why quick fixes fail. Supplements, techniques, and external stimulation cannot override a system that is depleted. Urologists and sexual health specialists know that sustainable improvement almost always comes from addressing lifestyle factors first. When blood flow improves, hormones rebalance, and sleep deepens, intimacy often returns naturally. There is also a powerful emotional component tied to physical health. When a person feels energetic, rested, and strong, they show up differently in relationships. Confidence increases, patience improves, presence deepens. These changes are felt immediately by a partner. Attraction is not just visual, it is energetic and emotional, shaped by how regulated and alive someone feels. Aging does not change this truth. In fact, it makes it more important. As the body ages, it becomes less forgiving of poor habits. What once caused minor fatigue now causes hormonal disruption. What once caused mild stress now suppresses desire. But the opposite is also true. Healthy habits become more powerful with age. Improvements in diet, sleep, and stress management can restore intimacy even after years of difficulty. One of the most overlooked facts is that sexual health is not a separate system. It is a reflection of overall health. When intimacy declines, the body is often asking for attention long before disease develops. Ignoring that message means missing an opportunity for prevention. This is why doctors increasingly view sexual symptoms as early indicators, not isolated problems. Erectile difficulties, low desire, and reduced satisfaction often appear before diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or hormonal disorders are diagnosed. Listening to these signals can change not only a relationship, but long-term health outcomes. The most powerful realization is this: you do not fix intimacy by focusing only on intimacy. You fix it by fixing the body that supports it. When circulation improves, when sleep becomes deep, when stress lowers, and when nutrition supports hormones, desire becomes a natural response instead of a forced effort. Women feel this shift. Men feel it too. Connection becomes easier. Touch feels different. Presence deepens. Not because something new was learned, but because the body finally has the resources to respond. This is the truth modern culture ignores. Bedroom success is built during the day, through choices that strengthen or weaken the body's core systems. Intimacy is not a performance. It is a biological reflection of health. And when health is restored, intimacy often follows without being chased at all.